Hey everyone, welcome back. So in our last explainer, we dug into what a resource actually is and what makes something valuable. If you missed that one, don't sweat it. Today we're taking the next logical step.
All right, so we know a resource is basically anything that has some use or value to us. But, think about that for a second. That covers so much stuff, right? From the water we drink to the computer you're watching this on. It's a huge list. So how in the world do we organize all of it? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to learn how to sort them all out.
So here's the game plan for today. We're going to start with the three big categories that every resource fits into. Then we'll dive deep into natural resources, the stuff from the planet itself. After that, we'll see how those natural things get transformed into man-made stuff. And finally, we'll talk about the most important resource of all, people.
Okay, let's kick things off with the big picture. Think of it like this. Every single resource you can imagine, absolutely everything, can be dropped into one of three main buckets. It's our first and biggest way of sorting things.
And honestly, it's pretty straightforward. First, you've got your natural resources, stuff that comes directly from nature. Then, you have human-made resources, which are things we build and create. And finally, human resources, which, you guessed it, is us, people. So let's break each one of these down.
All right, let's jump into that first bucket, natural resources. This is the big one. I like to think of these as gifts from planet Earth. But, just like presents, they're not all the same. So we gotta have a system to sort through them too.
The name pretty much says it all, right? These are resources drawn straight from nature, and we use them more or less as they are. Think about the air you're breathing right now, or the water in a river, or the soil in a field. These are often called free gifts of nature, because they're just there for us. Now, sometimes we do need technology to access them, like you might need to dig a well to get to groundwater, but the resource itself comes from the earth.
Okay, but even within this giant natural category, there's a ton of variety. So the next question is, how do we sort these out? Well, scientists actually have 4 different ways they like to classify them, and each one looks at a different characteristic.
First up, we can classify them based on how developed they are. On one side, you have actual resources. This is stuff where we know how much there is and we're already using it. Think about the rich coal deposits in Germany or the petroleum fields in West Asia. We know they're there and we're tapping into them right now. On the other side, you have potential resources. We might know they exist, but we aren't using them just yet. Maybe we don't have the right technology. A perfect example is the uranium found in Ladakh. And here's a cool way to think about it. 200 years ago, super fast winds were just wind, a potential resource for sure. But today, we've got massive wind farms that turn that potential into an actual resource, generating electricity. Pretty incredible, right?
Okay, our second classification method is based on origin, and this one is super simple. You've got abiotic resources, which are all the non-living things, soils, rocks, minerals. Then you have biotic resources, which are all the living things, plants and animals. That's it. Living versus non-living. Easy to remember, but a really crucial difference.
Third, we can sort resources by their stock, which is really just a fancy way of saying how much of it there is and how quickly it comes back. So on one hand, you have renewable resources. These are things that get renewed or replenished super quickly. Some, like solar and wind energy, are basically unlimited. On the other hand, you have non-renewable resources. These have a limited stock. Once they're gone, or at least they take thousands, even millions of years to form again. We're talking about things like coal, petroleum, and natural gas. Now, here's a super important point. Even with renewable resources, we have to be careful. Just because water is renewable doesn't mean we can't pollute it or waste it. If we're not smart, we can definitely deplete even resources like forests or clean water.
And yeah, just to be crystal clear, when we say stock of a resource, all we mean is the total amount that's out there and available for us to use.
And that brings us to our fourth and final way to classify natural resources, by distribution, or, simply where you can find them. Some resources are, they're everywhere. The air we breathe is a perfect example. These are called ubiquitous resources, but others are only found in specific places. You can't just dig anywhere and find copper or iron ore. These are called localized resources.
So why is that? Why isn't everything spread out evenly? This quote really nails it. The distribution of natural resources is unequal because things like terrain, climate, and altitude are so different all over the planet. Think about it. The Earth has towering mountains, flat plains, scorching deserts, and icy tundras. It's this incredible physical diversity that explains why some places are rich in certain minerals and others aren't.
Okay, so now that we have a handle on natural resources, things get really interesting.
Because what happens when humans take these raw materials and start working with them? Well, that's what brings us to our second big bucket, human-made resources.
So let's picture the starting point. We begin with these natural substances. We've got iron ore, we've got soil and rocks, we have water, we have trees.
And then people step in. We use our knowledge, our creativity, and our technology to completely transform them. See, a natural substance often only becomes a resource in the human-made sense after we change its original form into super useful human-made resources. That iron ore gets turned into cars. That soil and rock become the foundation for buildings and bridges. Those trees are used to build our homes and roads. And get this, even technology itself is a human-made resource. It's a tool we created that helps us create even more resources. Kind of blows your mind when you think about it, huh? You know, all this talk about knowledge, skills, and technology leads us perfectly into our third and final bucket. And honestly, this might be the most special resource of all. In fact, you could call it the ultimate resource. So when we talk about a human resource, what are we actually talking about? Well, it's two things: the number of people, the quantity, and more importantly, their abilities, both mental and physical. It's the human skill that allows us to look at a physical material like a chunk of iron ore and turn it into something valuable like steel. So what is it that makes people such a valuable resource? Well, it's things like knowledge, skill, and the technology we create. And things like a good education and good health are absolutely essential. They improve the quality of human resources, which in turn allows us to create even more resources. This whole idea has a name. It's called human resource development, and it's all about improving the quality of people's skills so that they can, you guessed it, create more resources. It's why education and healthcare are so incredibly important. So really, the key takeaway here is pretty profound. Humans are the one resource that turns everything else into a resource. Without human knowledge and skill, iron ore is just a rock, and a flowing river is just water. We're the secret ingredient.
So, let's recap. We have all these amazing resources, natural ones from the earth, human-made ones we create, and the human resources to make it all happen. But does that mean they're limitless? Can we just keep using them forever?
Well, that's a huge question, and it's the perfect setup for the third and final part of this series. Next time, we're going to dive into exactly that, conserving resources and something called sustainable development. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I can't wait to see you for the final part.